Hello everyone. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening all.
Good evening,
Good
sir.
evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Yeah. So today's not today's but this week's session will be covering the basics of OOPS concepts and I guess if possible today I'll start the Flask application, the Flask basics, and we'll be starting with the Flask application, which is a to-do list. So Python is a 100% object-oriented language, which means it treats everything as objects. Everything. Even you say variables, which we have discussed in a previous class, those are also considered as objects because we don't explicitly define everything as int or float or double or string or anything, because we just give s equal to hello or s equal to 123. It takes it directly and explicitly converts it into uh, its own data type. So that's the reason they are called dynamically typed languages. Python, PHP, not PHP, I guess Python and Ruby, I guess. Yeah, they are mm, like Ruby, Perl are a bit uh, not object oriented, but Python is considered as 100% object oriented language just because it considers everything as an object. As you can see, a equal to 10, a is an object, not a variable, but generally we call it as a variable. Still we need to call it as an object. So that's the reason object oriented programming is very robust and powerful, and obviously it's very fast also. Yeah, I'm recording as this. I'm recording it. Just started.
Sir, then after the class, please send me the video, sir.
Sure, sure. I'll send it by tonight if possible. Like I'll be uploading it on YouTube and I'll send it directly because recording the whole thing takes 1 hour. That's the reason.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Yeah, that's it. So let's start with the four pillars of object-oriented programming. One is abstraction, and the second one is inheritance. Third one is polymorphism, and fourth one is abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance, and what do you say that? Yeah, okay, let's keep on discussing each topic, then I may remember that. Okay, abstraction, what does that mean? Let's see, we use a mobile application. So we just use it, but we don't know what's happening in the background. We insert a card in ATM, we get money, and we don't know what's happening in the background. Just we use the UI and get the benefits. So this is the concept of abstraction. It doesn't let anyone know what's exactly happening in the background. It just helps them doing their own tasks, like completing their works by just making the things simple instead of dwelling deeper into the details. So that's called abstraction. Abstraction doesn't show everything, but instead it shows a simple thing which user assumes that is the final output, but there is a lot of process taking behind which is in the background. So the thing abstraction is done, and next one is polymorphism. Polymorphism means an object taking many forms. In simpler words, we can say an object like if I am a person, I may take many forms. Like I'm a friend to someone, I am a best friend to someone, I'm a son to my parents, I'm a brother to my sister. Like you can say an object taking many forms. It is simply called polymorphism. And the third one is inheritance. Inheritance, which means uh, an object acquiring properties from its parent class. It is called inheritance. So basically, um, let's say about genes, we acquire few properties from our parents, like few properties from a mother and few properties from a father. So in that way, a child class acquires properties from its parents class. I'll explain the things with examples in form of code so that you can understand better. So for now, I'm just giving an abstract meaning of what is what. So let's say we have two classes, A and B. A has a feature called eat and B has a feature called dance. So if C is child of A and B, he can get both the features eat and dance together. So that's called inheritance. We consider everything in a class and objects in object oriented programming. Okay, let me share the curriculum once. I think I have posted in the group, right? Yeah. So in day 2, in week 2 we'll be covering the first day object oriented programming, classes, objects, inheritance, and all the 4 pillars. And we'll be starting with introduction to Flask. Like this day only we'll be starting with that, because these concepts we won't be using more frequently except the concept of classes. We might use it depending on the use case, like how we are designing the application, we might use them, but the basic thing we use classes and objects. So uh, yeah, let's begin with that. System is a bit slow, please go. I'll show it here only. First one is abstraction, next one is polymorphism, inheritance, yeah, got it, and the next one is encapsulation. Encapsulation basically means uh, like binding data members and member functions in a single unit. Data members generally means variables, and member functions means the functions which we have discussed in our previous classes. So both are in a single unit, in a single part, which we call it as a encapsulated thing. So simply encapsulation is a meaning for a class. An example for encapsulation is class, because class has data members and member functions, like it has objects and it also has functions, right? So these are the 4 basic pillars of OOPS: abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance, and encapsulation. So let's start working on each of them. It goes. So I'll create another folder for OOPS. So in this way you can create another folder. Like this is for creating a file and this is for creating a folder. In that folder will be creating subfolders. Why I am creating a folder means in future, like when we start discussing about Flask, we might create 2 to 3 folders, and folders should not contain like it can contain subfolders, but few folders have restrictions. Like if we have created templates folder, we should not create static folder inside that because it doesn't work in Flask. So I'm just showing how to create a folder. Like, I haven't yet created it. Okay, it's done. Okay, yeah, fine. So inside that I'll create abstraction dot py. Okay, second please. So can anyone quickly tell me the definition of abstraction? Like whatever you feel, you tell me that. It's a simpler meaning. Can anyone please take the initiative?
Hiding the data.
Yeah, yeah, please.
Hiding the data.
Hiding the data. Okay. And what all? Like any example? Any example of real life example? I discussed it right previously. Anything? Like whatever you feel, you can say.
Assuming output.
Let me start abstraction. So we need not take anything, like we need not import any libraries here because it can be basically done using our basic knowledge, using a knowledge of looping and using a knowledge of conditions and everything because it's just basic. So let's take a class. So here for class it should be capital C. So this is even this is a case sensitive case insensitive language, but its keywords does require an uppercase. Let's discuss of vehicles. Why does it show errors? Should I import something? Yes, something is missing. Let's try it. Hey, actually, don't get confused. ABC is a library. It's a library of Python. Like Python being an open source language, many have contributed in many ways. ABC is a simpler library which supports object-oriented programming, and I'm trying to use that. Port ABC. It supports abstraction a lot, so using ABC doesn't make a great difference, but it helps in making the things bit easier. I can simply use the functions of ABC method. I guess error should go by now. Okay, it's wrong. It's fine. So let's continue. Okay. Only problem with Python indentation. Okay, I'll explain the code once I complete typing it. No, it won't get executed. Just I'm writing the pseudo code. So in similar way, you can declare more classes. So what this abstraction does is, it doesn't let us know it belongs to vehicle. We can directly use car or bike or anything just by calling the reference, which is the vehicle class. So simply we can use the vehicle class to make this simpler. I mean to say, the person need not know whatever the settings or whatever the configurations is done here. So the class vehicle can contain lot many functions and objects. We are just using it to make the work simpler. So we know what shape and what color the car should be, and rest all the parts in the car are copied from here, like class vehicle, and remaining the things we can use it directly. We can use a big motor in a car and a small motor in a bike. Like in similar way, we can do for all the vehicles by using the class vehicle. No one knows what a class vehicle contains. They just enjoy the benefits given by the vehicle, the smaller vehicles. So this is how this works. Like this is a basic abstract of the code, not the exact one. The exact ones will be discussed if in case we need anything, but at present this is enough. uh, Abstraction next, inheritance, right? Inheritance. So for example, we have a class A has function run. Next. Let's take something randomly. So there is another class called B. So in Java, basically we use extend keyword, but here we take this inside A. We take the reference of A inside B. So this means we are using the properties of B. So we can still use uh, run, sorry, B dot run. Here the run function is defined within class A, but by calling the class A here, we can still use the function, the method of B. Sorry, the method of A. So if I have play over here. So let it be. I have play method here. So I have another class over here, class C. I'll inherit B. So I can still access A dot run and A dot play as well, because here B extends A and C extends B, so C can use the properties of B and A as well. So this is all about inheritance. In inheritance, if B is, sorry, as we can see in logical reasoning, I mean, if C is considered as a grandchild and B is considered as a father and A is considered as a grandfather, C can contain properties of B as well as A. So in this way inheritance works. At present we might not use, but when we need a logical programming we might use this. So we are not going to use this in our Flask applications, but still I'm telling for an understanding. So we are done with abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism. Polymorphism. Simple example, class dog. So class animal, let me take class animal. What it does, it barks like any animal. It makes a sound of self. So the animal, I'll name an animal which is dog, and here I again use the concept of inheritance. Animal sound in. So in similar way I can call for cat as well. I can call for cat as well. So it can repeat for many things, but what we need to observe is here we use the same function sound. Here I used the function sound for animal, the function sound for dog, and the function sound for cat as well. So what the main motto is, this sound became bark for dog and meow for cat, and it may change for other animal. So this sound took property of, like, it took various forms. One form is bark, and one form is dog, and one form is cat, and one form can be any animal. So this is about polymorphism, means an function taking many forms. It took the form of dog, it took the form of cat, and it may take form of any animal. So this is about polymorphism. So just note it down. I'm just giving it as a brief introduction, just in order that you may be familiar with few concepts when we are doing it later. So, an encapsulation. So what all we are going to discuss, object oriented is dependent on encapsulation. Encapsulation is very much important concept. Like, we don't directly use encapsulation everywhere, but encapsulation is used without telling the name of encapsulation. We use it. We call it as a class. Let's call person. And we'll have objects name is equal to something, and we will also have functions. Def means some function. So it's a collection of data members and member functions. So this is a class, and there are three different properties of classes. One is public, private, protected, default. So what does a public class mean? If we see in the concept of inheritance, so A is B took the properties of A, C took the properties of B, which means all the classes are declared public. Hello?
Hardik sir, the code is
Yeah, the
showing
code
error,
shows
no
error
sir?
because this is not the exact code, and I wrote it in direct lines because this is not a proper syntax. Like, I didn't
Oh,
write class, right? Public class, class public. I'm just writing it as a word. That's it. Like, I'm not using my text editor because it's giving some kind of trouble. I'm using this, so don't get worried by these lines. It's quite common. Yeah, and the class, sorry, public class. If a class is declared as a public, it can be used by anyone. Like, anyone can use it. I mean, if it is a government portal, anyone can use it. So if a class is public, all can use, like, all the other classes can use the properties of public class. And if a class is private, only the classes within the private class can use the properties of a private class, or the classes within the program or the classes which are defined to or which are bound to use only private classes can use the properties of private class. And protected class, which means uh, if we have a module like abc, this file name is abstraction.py. So if I use from abstraction import star, only then I can use the properties of this abstraction class, because it is a protected class. Only the methods can be used. Like if I declare only, I'll be accessible to use, like it will be accessible to use, otherwise I can't use it. So private means it can be accessible only in the code, and protected means if I call it only I can use it, otherwise no one can use it. Or if I give access to only few people, they can only use it, other people cannot use it, right? So default means it is directly private. It is linked to private only. It is default private class. Like no other people can access it. Like I just wanted to brush up, so that's the reason I didn't focus on any topic too particularly. So that's the case. Let me create another folder. I'll start Flask as soon as possible because it's been late by now. I guess you'll be excited for the project. Flask. So I'll switch to this directory. If anyone is following me or doing it parallelly, you can also do the same thing. Create another folder and switch to that. Let me first explain the basics of Flask. So whatever I write, it doesn't show me any error because this is a text file properly. So what is a Flask? Flask is a web development framework offered by Python. It has two different frameworks, right? One is Django and another one is Flask. But why we are discussing only Flask? Because compared with Django, it has less number of files and everything can be written in a single file. So that's the reason we are using Flask, not Django. We might also use Django, but I'm a bit familiar with Flask, and I can like Flask is a big, user friendly and beginner friendly also. Anyone can be adjustable and flexible working with Flask. So that's the reason I'm starting with Flask. So it has some proper and basic syntaxes. We need to first know what they all are, and later we can proceed. I'll start with that one second. So what you need in your system to run Flask? So firstly you need Python install, and that's done, and the text editor, which is VS Code. And what next? So basics of Python. So you all know, right? We have discussed in previous class. Those basics are enough to start using Flask. So did everyone install VS Code and Python in your systems? Like I guess everyone has them. If someone doesn't have them, please let me know before starting, because it's mandatory for everyone to have Python and VS Code installed in your systems, and the setup is fine. At least a single code is executable. Okay, so let me start with a simple file, app.py. Like this is the default which is provided. Like Flask basically names every file, like it expects people to name the file as app.py because it's a flexible way of naming the file. Like people may name it as main.py or any names, but app.py can be a good name. So before getting started with Flask, we need to first install the libraries needed, the extensions. So what is pip? What is a pip? Any ideas? PIP.
A command that helps us to
Yep.
install modules.
It has all modules of Python. So when we install the Python itself, pip gets installed. So we need not again install it.